I had 125 scholarship offers out of high school. I averaged 29 points a game without a three-pointer. Filipinos aren't good basketball players. That's the stereotype. We're too small. We're not quick enough. I can go down the list of all the stereotypes of why we can't make it. Filipinos are family-oriented, and it's all centered around the mother. It's a family that the mother's the glue. The mother's the one who keeps all the other family members involved. The mother's the one, if there's 5 of us, if she'd have to show up, the first 2 innings or 3 innings of my game and my brother's game, and then she'd go to my sister's softball game and finish the second half of that game. She found a way to make sure all of us knew that we were loved and supported.
She taught us the importance of, just making sure that everybody was close, and you would do whatever you can for family members and help them out. And they were family, and you stuck close together through thick and thin, which kind of, talk about her journey coming over. That's how they were. And they came over here with not much, but they put all their money together. They all lived close together up in Stockton, helped each other out.
The maternal side of the family, the Morelia side, is in Filipino historical. One of our great aunts made the flag for the Philippines. Another one, funded the revolution. She had money, so she bought boats for the Navy.
We didn't have a lot of money. We were just a simple Filipino family, 5 children. I had a wonderful mother, 5'1" Filipina. She's Pinay, and she's from Taal, Batangas. And my father was about 6'1", 6'2", and he was just a coach who was just a strict perfectionist who wanted things done right. And, the standard was you could only be the best. So between a loving mom who never gave up and I saw serve the world with that Filipino heart, and a dad that pushed me, it was a good foundation to come from. And with all the family support, there's myself, my brother, Curtis, 2 years younger than I am, who coaches over at Kansas University with Bill Self. My 3 sisters were some of the greatest athletes to ever come out of San Jose.
It was all sports all the time. Everything revolved around that. And, my parents made it a priority, and people used to walk in our house, and we used to have this glass trophy case. And it was the first thing when you walked in, and people were just amazed. Not exaggerating, but we had at least 300 to 400 trophies in there, from really big ones to small kind of, first place or all the league type ones. But it was something that was really emphasized, and we were really competitive almost in everything we did.
Raymond's grandparents and his mom were very active in the Filipino community. But the Filipinos, we all wow, there's Filipinos there playing hoop, and these guys doing big things, right? And we all want to identify with that, right? They'd go on the court, and they'd be the folks that weren't white, you knew who they were. And it brought a lot of pride.
So growing up, we had our racial tensions. There was, if you were black, you were supposed to be a great basketball player, but you couldn't date any white girls. And if you were white, you couldn't date black girls. And so the segregation and the racial inequality was always been there. In terms of being Asian American, like I said, I could have told everybody I was Filipino all my life, which I have. Nobody believed I was. And it further solidified the fact that they didn't think I was Filipino because I had this huge afro in college. And everybody who played in college was, mostly black, and the whole NBA was black. Filipinos aren't good basketball players. That's the stereotype. We're too small. We're not quick enough. I can go down the list of all the stereotypes of why we can't make it. And I was labeled a lot of that, but I had enough game that everybody thought I was black.
Hey, and back then you were either black or white, it wasn't really any brown people. And, but it was, my teammates all handled it good. But when you go other places and you'd hear people yell stuff out of the stands, but, you kind of block it out. And the only reason they were doing it is because you were one of the better players on your team.
Really couldn't find a whole lot of players to play against when I was younger. So I would go up to Hunters Point in San Francisco, where all the black players showed up, and they didn't care about my age. They didn't care about my skin color. They just thought I was a light-skinned black player.
I associated more with the black players, the black athletes, and that's who I identified with, just because you were either white or you weren't white.
I had 125 scholarship offers, Pranav, out of high school. I averaged 29 points a game without a three-pointer. I remember when Coach Wooden came to our game, I think I had 36 that night. And I had a really good night offensively and defensively. And I know he came over. He was at the house 2 days later. I remember the first thing he said to me, Pranav, when he sat down, he goes, Raymond, we run a program of honesty and integrity here at UCLA. And in winning, at that time, it was 9 NCAA championships in 11 years. He said, the integrity of our program is very important. So I just need to know, if it in any way upsets you or disappoints you, but to be honest with you, you're not my number one pick. That's what he told me. I was like, excuse me? So I, out of curiosity and being cocky and knowing who I was, on the basketball court, I said, Coach, who's your number one? He said, it's a guy named Mark Wolfmeyer. He says, plays down in LA. He's an LA product, being UCLA. He's our number one. He averaged 39 points a game. He goes, you're our number two. You average 29 points a game. But we think between you two with almost 60 points a game in high school, that's without threes, we think we could have one of the better backcourts in the nation. The next breath, he said, mind you, I'm going to recruit 14 other All-Americans during your 4-year tenure, Raymond. Are you okay with that? And I said, yes, sir, bring them on. But that was how our conversation went, and then the more I got to know him, the more I knew he was the man I wanted to play for. He's the mind I wanted to learn from. The more we talk basketball, and I have a really good IQ. I really understood the game. Coach Wood used to have this saying, knowledge is a great equalizer. Well, my IQ was probably one of the reasons I can compete at such a high level, because Coach Wooden felt that knowledge is a great equalizer, meaning the smarter you are and the more you understand and see the game and can read the book, the better you can compete against the athletes that are much more talented, much more athletic, stronger than you. But you level the playing field just with your mind and the way you understand the game. So whenever he'd say knowledge is a great equalizer, that's exactly what he was talking about. So the more I talked basketball that night, the more I knew I was going to end up at UCLA. But the final icing on the cake to go to UCLA was, I said, Coach Wooden, I said, I'd love to come to UCLA. I'm ready to sign my letter of intent, but on one condition. He cut me off real quick and said, Raymond, there are no conditions to our letter of intent. I said, well, sir, I just need to know one thing. He goes, okay. I said, this had nothing to do with basketball. He goes, okay, I'll listen. So I said, I want to play baseball. I said, I'd like to play baseball at UCLA. Will you give me permission that after basketball season that I could play baseball? And, he thought about it. He kind of taking his time. And then, he goes, that's an unusual request. But he goes, yes, you can play baseball after the Final Four. So Pranav, he knew where he was going to be at the end of March every season.
Raymond was so successful and good at everything. He was the starting quarterback. He was the best basketball player. He was a switch hitter in baseball. ended up getting drafted in both. So he was such a phenomenal athlete that, you know, you looked at it, and my dad, to his credit, he's thinking, well, this is the way to do it, you know, and he wanted us to be better than him. It was hard for me, to be honest, and but I was so proud of Raymond, because he was so good, and he got everything he deserved, and he worked. He actually probably worked harder than I did when he was young at that game. So I was so happy for him to go to UCLA, and so happy that, you know, his dream came true. He was first round draft pick in the NBA. All that was great, and inside I really felt happy for him. Deep down, though, it was hard for me, because no matter how good I was, I think I averaged 23 or 24 a game in high school with no threes, but I didn't really get the credit because everybody would say, you know, he's good, but he's not as good as his brother, which was accurate and true. I mean, there was one game, I think I had 39 or 40 points in a game, and the headline was, you know, that I led my team to a thing getting 39. But the very first sentence in the deal, I just remember it stuck with me, that really hurt. Although not quite as good as his brother, you know, Curtis Townsend led Camden to, and you know, I'm going, golly, I was my own person. And it wasn't until later on that I understood that, to me, like comparison is the thief of joy. You know, if you're going to compare yourself to somebody else, you'll never be happy, kind of almost like keeping up with the Joneses. But the part that made it easier for me, Raymond was the best big brother that anybody could ever ask for, because he cared about me, took me under his wing, and deep down, I think he really wanted me to be better than him, because I think he knew what I went through. And I think my mom knew what I was going through, and so she was the one, I said, always was nurturing and would come to my games and tell me how great I did, even though other people would, you know, compare me and think I wasn't as good. I went and played for Gene Cady at Western Kentucky, and it was kind of my way of getting off the West Coast, where people knew who my brother was in Kentucky, but they didn't really know who he was. And so I kind of made a name for myself.
Curtis had mad basketball skills and baseball skills. Both of them got drafted by professional teams right out of high school to play baseball. He won the last NCAA championship that Wooden would coach at UCLA. He made, you know, all conference. He was outstanding. You know, he made second team All-American.
My junior year, people don't even understand how good we were. My junior year, Pranav, we had 11 out of 15 players went to the NBA. 8 of us were first rounders. If you can even imagine, 8 first rounders on that team. So, you know, when you're playing that kind of competition every day, you're almost destined to have the opportunity to play at a high level. Mm-hmm. Played 3 years varsity baseball at UCLA. Started at shortstop my sophomore year, the year we won the Pac-8 championship. And we beat a very good USC baseball team who dominated baseball for years. I got moved to second base my junior and senior years. I ended up hitting .310 career average. I switch hit. I hit .356 my senior year, and I was 120th pick in the nation with the Cincinnati Reds. And, you know, people don't understand how bad I wanted to be a Yankee. People have no idea. But basketball was the sport I ended up playing professionally.